Hi, I'm Greg Braxton, and we're talking today with Lili Taylor of American Crime, Season 3. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Nice, lighthearted season as usual, but incredible performance by you as Claire.
Thank you.
This season dealt with, as always, some very heavy issues on American crime, and your character in particular is so interesting because at first we think she's one thing, and then it turns out that she seems to come across as very light and very happy, and then we find out that there's quite a bit of darkness, not only within her, but within her life, and her coping mechanisms are very complicated. Um, Tell me your reaction when you first heard about, when John Ridley first came to you about this character that you were going to play, particularly when you found out that Claire um, speaks French most of the series.
Well, as usual, I love what John is thinking about and what he wants to talk about. And when he said the season was based on, loosely based on Tomato Land, the book, and The Slave Next Door, about modern day slavery, I said, I'm in. What do you want? Well, he said, well, you you are a version of a modern day slavery situation. And okay. And, in some ways, Claire does not fit the stereotype of a modern day domestic slave holder. Usually, those people come from a caste system, or I heard they've suffered a genocide. And so there was a little bit of pushing because it's not so typical.
Right.
So the writers worked really hard on making it believable. And so I had a tremendous amount of foundation under me to make this character work that's really complicated and not a lot of stuff to support what she's doing,
Right.
textbook-wise.
Right.
And so I was happy about that because it turned out that it was really very emotional and personal in that it was a very toxic marriage. He told us to think about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and what happens when someone's in such a toxic situation and how it bleeds out over into other areas of their life. And that's what he wanted to get across in our story, was how the ethical responsibility of someone to deal with their unconscious content.
Now Claire is very well off. She's in a very, what seems to be sort of successful marriage in terms of she doesn't have anything to worry about financially, and she takes on this worker from Haiti to come and take care of her little boy and teach him French. Um, in terms of the challenge of getting into that character, what was your research?
Well, that was the thing, is that the research just wasn't applying to Claire, a Caucasian woman, upper middle class, in America. There's not one case of it, of what she's doing. So that's why I had to push into another area and
Right.
really push into someone who was behaving not from like a socioeconomic or institutionalized sort of thing that, right? It's more like very psychologically, it came from a psychological place, right? And which is actually much better because I'd rather do that than an issue any day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And but we had to kind of go back to that. She witnessed abuse in her family, and so she was acting out. She was acting out some things that she saw her mother go through. That was some of the backstory we came up with. But really, what it came down to was someone who's very disassociated, And that's what I focused on. And that was uncomfortable and difficult to be in there.
Plus, you had the additional challenge of doing most of your dialogue in French. What was your reaction when, now you do not speak French.
I don't speak French.
What was your reaction when John told you you're going to be speaking in this foreign language?
I was scared. I had maybe 5 months, so maybe 4 months. So every night I did 30 minutes by myself and was pretty proud of. Well, there's nothing like fear though to motivate you to learn something or do something. But I was scared. That's when an actor you got to pull out some technique, because there's nothing like an accent to bring an audience member out of something, a bad accent.
And the thing is, in watching you, I thought you spoke French. I mean, I thought you were so good in presenting that, and you just seemed like a very fluent speaker in that. But what was your biggest challenge in learning that dialogue and learning how to project and actually act like this is second nature for you? Because it did seem like it was second nature for you in speaking that language.
It was a really great exercise. It was one of the more challenging things I've done just for the mind. I know parts of my brain lit up that probably haven't been lit up that way. I feel like I'm almost sure I grew neurons. I mean, if you were going to take an MRI of my brain before the shoot and after, I know things grew. I could feel it. It was so hard to do I memorize the line with the feeling? Basically, this was the thing: is I couldn't have any thing that was not fully there, because the thing about acting is you're getting all this new stimuli that it throws you, but because you know your lines, but when I'm speaking a foreign language and then I have a new stimuli because the actor's going to do something that's new, and I was thrown, and I was like, the French, it's gone, damn it, you know? So I had to it had to be like I could do it in my sleep. It had to be that I could do it when I was doing this sort of thing.
Right.
And so that's just what I did. So I just was like, work.
So was it like when you were in the car, at home, everything was just sort of focused on that?
Exactly.
And plus you had to know what Michelle Bicolet, the actress that you were playing with, was saying too.
Exactly. I don't know what she's saying. So I'm translating. I'm translating emotionally, and the fear is that I'm saying things and I'm not, and it's like I don't know what I'm saying, guys. I'm just speaking a foreign language. There's nothing. I don't know what the hell I'm feeling or saying,
Right.
So I really had to. It was so many layers. It was really cool, actually.
In the 3 seasons of the 3 different characters that you've played in American Crime, where would you rank this in terms of challenge and difficulty for you? Because it just seems like you're such a great actress, and we've admired you with so many things, and we come to expect outstanding performances from you. But where does this rank in terms of that?
Technically, it was the most difficult, and psychologically, it was difficult because there was no flow to her emotion. Whereas in season 2, Anne had a flow, even though it was intense. There was still because like before emotion, there's that E, and then it's motion. So there's motion, and when somebody's disassociated or in denial, there's all these areas that are off limits. And so there's no flow, nothing's talking to each other. And it's actually much harder because it's just disjointed and hard.
How much did John tell you about the character in terms of the arc? Because we see her and it sort of seems like everything's all right, even though there's something off kilter, but it's not alarmingly off kilter. And then and then it's revealed later in the season, particularly in the finale, that there's a real, that you're doing some pretty awful things.
Well, here's the thing. I remember I was in the makeup trailer. It was maybe, I don't know, whenever the stuff started to show up on Gabrielle's, the nanny's arms. And I saw the makeup tests and I said, wait a minute, guys, this is very severe. I did not know Claire was doing this kind of damage. So we have to talk.
So he didn't tell you
No.
in advance that you were...
I knew I was abusing her, but I didn't know it was at that level. So I asked for some writers to come in and talk. I said, we need a powwow because we need to talk right now because this is very severe.
Did it bother you? Did it really disturb you?
It disturbed me, but it also concerned me that we need to make sure all the pieces are in place to support this level of psychology. And the writers came in and they said, we know, we have spent hours in the writer's room making sure that this character works. And we know what we're up against here. And I said, because here's the thing, guys, if this is the level that she's at, we need to make sure episodes 6, 7, and 8 show that this woman is very sick. And we need to, and I haven't seen those scripts. So we need to, so we talked and we also made some adjustments because I said, listen, if she's at this level, we have to add in a few things in the DSMV. We've got to add in disorder, just this disorder, that disorder,
When Claire first takes Gabrielle's passport, because Gabrielle is carrying her passport around, and Claire seems very concerned and said, you can't carry this around. I'm going to put it away for you in a safe place, in a safe. You can get it whenever you want. Is she aware at that time is it just it just seems like a very polite gesture, but is she aware that she's actually sort of indirectly imprisoning this woman?
No. And that was something else I wanted to talk to John about because the textbook with modern day slavery they're very clear about what they're doing. And the passport is one of the first things to go. And they know what they're doing. It's a plan. And I said, Claire, it can't be that with Claire because she's not coming from that system. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be unconscious. And only by then seeing that she's getting some power, that then does it serve to her when she realizes that the level of abuse is to such a point that she's got to keep that Gabrielle in, that then the passport being in the safe will serve her. But it's got to be unconscious.
What does the French language represent for Claire? Why French?
Well, this is why John's great, because John is able to take an issue that he's concerned about and not just justify it, earn it. He's able to earn it. So, he wanted a situation where we have someone from another country who doesn't speak the language, who's here. Now, to make that work on an emotional levels, that we're all buying it, and it's not like, oh, I see, he wanted to, I get the idea. Mm-hmm. But that's what he wanted. So how do we get that across and justify all that and earn it, So I said, what if I'm a Francophile? What if I went to college for a year in France and I love France? And what about if my friend had a nanny from Haiti? And I thought, she seems so happy. Not only could we get care for Nicholas, for Nikki, and then my husband and I maybe we'll get along again, but I can learn French. I can brush up on my French. My son can learn French, and my friend seems so happy. Let's do it. So we sort of earned an idea.
So what were those scenes like with the actress who plays? How does she pronounce her name? Mikael, the actress who plays Gabrielle.
Is this edited? Is this going to be edited? I don't know. Which tells you how we got along.
Right. Yeah. So what was your process in the scenes that you had together, the power play that's going on with you guys?
I'm not a method actor, but John does like when things bleed over on the set. I think he doesn't want us to suffer, but I think he doesn't mind if it's going to help the situation. So I don't think John would have been dying wait, time out. How do you think I pronounce her? How is it? Michelle?
I think it's Michelet.
Michelet?
I think so.
So I think John was preferred for Michelet and I not to be best buddies
Right.
outside of the scenes. And I think the nature of the parts were just, look, I don't know her, we weren't friends. If we were friends, maybe we could have joked around and said, that was kind of crazy, I just sort of burned you there, you know?
Right.
But it's like, because we didn't know each other, it just didn't feel right to hang out. It just didn't feel right. So we didn't.
Wow, that's pretty heavy. Because so much, you're interacting with her so much on the set.
Yeah.
In this thing.
Yeah.
The other main part of your character is your marriage and the very toxic marriage between you and the character played by Timothy Hutton. Really, really difficult dialogue and scenes. You two say some really horrible things to each other. Working with Timothy, what was that like? Because you've worked with him a little bit before, but this was your most intense interaction ever.
I loved working with Tim. He felt like a comrade. Like he felt like we both have a similar work ethic. I think we love working and we love going to any lengths for that work. And so we were rehearsing a lot in our off time. And, we'd go to a diner and we'd start talking and we'd just say, let's just run the line. Let's just run the lines now. It's as if they are out to eat. Let's just pretend they're out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like? Let's talk. Let's try it. And when we hit a bump, we'd make a note and we'd actually just call the writer right at the diner and just say, you know what? There's a little bump here. What can we do about this? And she would tell us, why don't you try this? We try that and oh, it's good. Now it's smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was lovely working with Tim.
But when you're portraying a toxic marriage, and you're saying things and you're getting things back that are just really horrible, how does that impact you? How, as an actress, when you're seeing these two people just rip each other apart, and what sort of research do you do in that? Because we've all been around couples like this that really go at each other. But what was that like for you?
Well, I have, just like you said, I've had experience or I've seen or read things about a very toxic marriage. I can imagine it. I feel like the writers did the work. When the writing is there, you kind of just have to let go. And the writing will carry you if those writers have done their job. And John and that writer's room, they're so deep that I felt in 4 or 5 episodes that they did something that's very difficult. It's like Carver does it really well, Raymond Carver. There's a few people that can get those intricacies of what happens in that complicated relationship, and they got it. And so Tim and I just had to kind of let go and trust. But what's interesting is it did start to impact Tim and I in the last episode. So we were okay. We got it. We know that George and Martha. We know when you're up against a wall and there's really no hope, and that person represents everything you hate. But Tim and I, we had a conflict in the final episode, and I'm saying this because I know he'd be okay with me saying, I think he would be, and if he's not, I'll talk to him after this interview and talk to him about,
What was the point? What was the scene?
Well, it was in the prison scene when I'm going to confess, and Tim and I, we had a conflict, and it bled over. It finally bled over, and it was really uncomfortable. We weren't agreeing on something, and it was really uncomfortable. And afterwards, we didn't get through it. Like, we got through the scene, but we didn't quite patch up. And I came into his trailer after the scene, and I just said, Tim, I said, I said, we're comrades and we love each other and you're fantastic. And I said, and you know what? I don't think it's a surprise that that happened. Look, I mean, as actors, things are going to bleed over. It's like we're not robots. So of course it bled over. Look how we've been for the past, 5 episodes. It's been so awful. So we just gave a big hug and just said, but how can you not, and film, and it's like theater has more rituals in a way to help the actor with that stuff. There's even things, wipe your feet at the stage door before you go in and after you leave. And when you leave, you wipe your feet, you leave your character there. There's things you can do. There's a threshold you cross when you leave the wings and you go onto the stage. It's a threshold. There's things to help, but there isn't with film and TV. So there's things that I think I need to do to help myself. I've been wearing wigs on American Crime, which is like new for me and I love it. But like leaving that wig, I take the wig off. I leave the wig there with the character, So I say, you stay here, Clair. You're not coming, okay? All right, you're staying here. But Tim and I didn't have something like that, so.
Did that hug take care of it?
It did it. And he's like, we love each other. We're comrades. And it's okay what happened there, it's okay.
Overall, what has this series meant for you?
Well, what's been really neat is I feel like, I know the ratings are low and everyone's admitting that, no one's pretending, no one's, acting as if they're not, but I do feel though it broke through in another way. It may not have broken through with numbers, but I feel like the show broke through, critically in a way. I feel like people have gotten it, but I feel like it's being talked about in another way that it hadn't been before. And some of that's, I think, because of where we're at politically. I feel people are maybe more, something shifted. And so for that, it feels fantastic. Just for John and what everybody's doing. I'm sure when the wire broke through, it must have felt like, you guys didn't need it to break through because you're fine, but it's.
But the wire didn't break through until
5.
Yeah.
Until I know.
And now everyone remembers it and say, oh, it was the greatest thing. But when it was on, it was too raw for people.
Exactly. And so now it's like this broke through, I think, because probably people's capacity to handle difficult stuff has probably deepened. We all know we're in a different place and things are deeper now. And I think that, I'm hearing civilians talk about the show more too. Again, even though maybe the numbers aren't high, I know my neighbor who always gives me she's sort of my pulse on the finger on the pulse thing. And she's like, people are talking about this season. She's just, she works with kids, she's a teacher, but she's involved on Facebook and she loves TV. And she's like, this season. And she's like, my friends are talking about it on Facebook. So that's my window in.
It's such a great series. It's so heavy, so relentless. A couple of other lighter questions I wanted to ask you. What are you binge watching? Or do you have time to binge watch? What are you connecting with?
I'm not great about taking that leap to watching things, and I should more. I would say, look, I do a lot of frontline. I need to take breaks. I do too much, documentaries, frontline.
Real.
And then podcast-wise, I've been binging Up and Vanished. Hello, it's like, can I lighten things up a little bit here? I'm way too political right now. I'm doing the Weeds podcast. I'm doing some podcasts now, I think.
And why is that?
I think things were probably hectic for me growing up, and so things were a little chaotic, and I know that I sort of maybe thrive on that a little bit. Like I get into a vigilance, and so this time is perfect for me, for my skill set of growing up in a kind of what's going on now? So like I'm just kind of like I'm reading everything, I'm listening to everything, I am up on it right now. So that's just where I am.
Let's see, what else do we do? If you could go back and be on any classic show, what would it be?
Of all time?
Of
All time. I'm going to pick two. I'm going to go Wire and Faulty Towers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why those two?
Well, I do binge watch Faulty Towers. I mean, I'm on like 500th thing of seeing them. Wire, because The Wire went into that realm where it's not acting, it's
life.
channeling. It's
Yeah.
life. It's channeling. It's for a greater good. Everybody's out of their way and they're on another. There were some scenes when I was watching where I could have almost been on a drug in that I didn't know what the hell reality was anymore. When I was watching, there was no camera, there were no actors. It was like, and I just love what Simon's doing, talking about those that don't get talked about. I love that stuff. And Faulty Towers, because it's, I mean, everybody knows that show is brilliant. I mean, if you just keep watching it over and over, it's just how it works. It's structurally so perfect, and I love that kind of humor, and laughing is good, as we know, and I don't do enough of it.
Yeah. Which team would you be on, Tony Soprano or Walter White?
You know, I haven't done enough with those shows.
Really?
So let me think. Could I go Barclay?
Okay. That works.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah.
Anyway, once again, congratulations on such a compelling, layered, brilliant performance. Like I said, we've always known that we can expect that from you, but I think just this season was just incredible, and I admire you so much for the project, for your performance, for what you've brought to acting. Really, just great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Lili, and for more of these Emmy chats, please go to latimes.com. Thank you very much.